Welcome, welcome. You're listening to the Drink a Little podcast where we talk about exploring the world of wine and spirits while not letting it take over your life. My name is Kelly Doherty. I'm a joyful child of God and a certified life coach. I'm also a wine educator and wine and spirits brand designer. I'll show you how you can navigate your relationship with alcohol and how that mindset spills over into the rest of your life. We'll learn about the world of wine and spirits together, all while bolstering your confidence that you can have boundaries around alcohol and live your most amazing life. This is episode number 3, Veuve Clicquot Champagne. So today we're going to talk about champagne and constraint. How this works is we taste a little and we see how the story of this wine, or in this case champagne, leads us into talking about the amazing benefits of constraining your focus when starting something new. So constraint, I would argue, within the bubbly wine world and within your internal thought life is where the power resides. So we'll start with a little tasting of some actual French champagne. This is the Veuve Clicquot, the classic. You can find it anywhere. You know the distinctive orange label when you see it. And usually I have my wine open and ready to drink, but I want to open this as we talk because that's where the excitement really is, in the opening. And in champagne, you've seen it in the movies where it's almost like they shook up the bottle. It pops when it opens and half the bottle flows out everywhere. Everyone's happy and joyous, like that's how it's supposed to be done. And that's great if you want to waste half the bottle and possibly injure family members with the cork flying across the room. So what's actually happening when it's overflowing, you have all this dissolved CO2 that's literally constrained in there. If you look at this bottle of champagne from the side, you don't see any bubbles before opening. They are dissolved and ready to become unconstrained. And in the case of Hollywood, this is the pop the cork and make a mess everywhere method. So I wanted to share a safer and more champagne preserving method to open sparkling that has a cork. So first you want it really well chilled, and it will be less explosive that way. At least 3 hours in the fridge, never in the freezer. And then you can take off the foil and unwind the wire cage. And as you're unwinding, you want to keep your thumb on top of the bottle with your other hand. You want to point it away from you at a 30-degree angle and not point it at anybody else. This is really under a lot of pressure inside this bottle. And then you want to take the bottle and, holding the top with your thumb and the cork, you want to turn the bottom of the bottle. You don't want to turn the cork, you turn the bottle. And you want to do it slowly. You want it to just give a little foop when it opens and not really that pop. But let's see how this goes. Very slowly. It's a little pop. And now we have freed the dissolved CO2. Got a little bit of smoke from its constraints to become elegant bubbles to pour into your glass. This is the constrained process of opening to get the most out of the experience of savoring it once it's in your glass. Then there's enough to share, and there's not as much to clean up off the floor. Now, in tasting this champagne, it's going to be very dry. And we do have a whole podcast coming out just on the sweetness levels in champagne and sparkling wines. This one has brut on the label, and it's the least confusing of them, but brut just means dry. So we'll give it a little taste. And those bubbles, those pearls on the palate are just gorgeous. Lemony, vanilla and toast, a little softened yellow apple. Very lively, very bright, very fun to drink. And I chose this as our first champagne because of the history and the woman behind the brand. So it's called Veuve Clicquot, and Veuve literally means widow. This is the Widow Clicquot. She was a woman who married into a second-generation champagne house, and her husband actually died when she was 27. This was 1805 in France. When her husband died, she petitioned her father-in-law to be able to take over and run the business, and he granted this. And I think of her when I go through a lot of different things. So I'm sure she had a lot of obstacles, and I'm not going to be able to do this story justice in this short time. There are actually whole books about it. But definitely in a time when women didn't own or run businesses, she grew her husband's business and started her own champagne house and ran it until she died at 89 years old. So whatever I'm running into as far as my obstacles cannot be as steep a hill as she climbed in 19th century France. I see her story and I know we're here to learn from our challenges and maybe even live a sparkling life. And part of that sparkling life comes from changing things and trying new things. Like we all love to start a new thing, and of course it's going to be amazing. So maybe you're trying new things in your personal life, trying to shift your relationship with alcohol, maybe trying to love yourself through some tough things right now. And I'm all for these shifts. And remember, I was talking at the beginning of the podcast about constraint. Those constrained bubbles are let out at the perfect time when their fruit is meant to be amazing in your glass. And we're talking about you and the things you're shifting in your life. It's important to constrain to one thing at a time to get that amazing fruit. If you want to truly change something in your life, focus on just one thing when you start. Constrain for a planned period of time to just that one thing. And I know as soon as we say we're constraining to the one thing, our minds kick and scream and fight when we try to do this. Our instinct is to decide to change everything at one time. I'm going to stop over drinking. I'm going to lose 50 pounds. I'm going to the gym every day. And I've totally been there when I think Monday, I'm going to start life anew. I drastically clean out the pantry, start donating 2-year-old crackers to the office. I clean out my bar. I start Googling gyms in the area to join immediately. And there's such fervor and panic around that it doesn't last. It's like the bubbles going flat. So constrain, pick one new goal at a time. And I promise you that what you will learn from constraining yourself to working on that one thing at a time will have compounding benefits in the future. For example, if you focused on stop over drinking for 6 months, you'd be amazed at what you learn about yourself that you can apply to so many other things now that you've already gotten that toolkit. When we do the deep work on these topics, we acquire meta skills. They're skills you can transfer to anything else you want to accomplish. And with stop over drinking, what I've seen people acquire is a belief that they can figure anything out. Unconditional love for themselves through the challenges. They trust themselves that they can change things. They see they have the power to change. They create the skill of feeling their actual feelings instead of distracting themselves from what's really going on inside. And often they gain the skills to clearly communicate their wants and desires to others when they weren't able to do that before. And these are just a few crucial meta skills that constraining to one goal at a time can give you. And I believe this is where your true personal power comes from. If the widow Clicquot created her personal power through this champagne in 1805, then I know you can do anything you put your mind to. You can create your own personal power today, one goal at a time, and one glass at a time in this case. And the other choice, we always have choices, right? Is not to constrain, to feel that hurried, fix everything at one time kind of feeling. And what usually happens is absolutely nothing. We get overwhelmed and we don't follow through and we have a mess. We end up being the bottle of champagne that explodes. The mess is everywhere and there's nothing of substance put in your glass to appreciate and savor. Okay, my friends, that is what I have for you this week. And next week, we will be tasting Educated Guess, the Napa Cabernet Sauvignon. This gives you 1 week to bring an educated guess as far as what we'll be talking about. So I will see you then. And if anything is bubbling up for you and you want to take things I teach to a deeper level, I do have a one-on-one coaching program tailored to your needs where we cover how to stop over drinking, how to love yourself for all the right reasons, and emotional well-being. Go to kellydoherty.com/cheers. That's Kelly, Kelly, Doherty, DOHERTY.com/cheers.